Hey folks, welcome back. It's Erik Core doing an interview for Punk Globe with Geoff from the Temple Beautiful Band, and one of the people who was one of the primary people behind the legendary Temple Beautiful Club in San Francisco. So I'm happy to talk to you today.
Hey, well, thank you, Eric. I met you and we've done some shows together with Erik Core Band, Kiss
Yeah,
on
I
a
think
Pole. So
we
very
met
good.
at Hotel Utah the first time.
I'm sorry again.
I think we met at the Hotel Utah the first time.
Yes, exactly. Hotel Utah. And we're going to play there again in August. So,
Yes, that'll be a lot of fun.
yep.
So, yeah, I saw the video you produced. I've heard a little bit about it, and yeah, I got into what you did kind of after the fact because I didn't know. I love the name Temple Beautiful Band, and then I remember watching you guys play, and I really liked the songs, and I hadn't heard them, but you had a lot of stories you told like about the different bands. And when I went up to you afterwards, you were like, "Oh yeah, well there was this Temple Beautiful Club," and then you started talking to me about it. So. If you could just share with people a little bit about what the club was and how that started and how you got connected to it, that'd be really cool.
And I'll just say it was more than a club in that it was an old synagogue that was built in 1906. And actually, we have photos in the video of, well, the earthquake, the famous San Francisco earthquake hit while they were building it, and it collapsed and they had to rebuild it. So we have shots of that. And well, in 2000, I was booking kind of straight ahead rock and roll bands. I was older than most of the punks, and I was in blues bands. And I produced some show or booked some shows at a place called the Rathskeller, the bottom of the California Hall. And this guy, Paul Bakovich, who was later known as Paul Rat, was putting on shows there. And I got to know him. We started talking. And prior to that, I had been around, mostly doing that kind of music. And an old friend contacted me, and I hadn't seen in a couple of years, named uh, Lynn, who became Lady uh, Lady LaRue, and she invited me over to her apartment with her husband. They lived three doors down from the MAB, and this was in 77 or 78, 78. And so we went and met, and they had been regularly going there. They get it free. They knew Dirk, and I'm not sure when I met Ginger, but it was very early on. And so I was just so blown away by the music scene. It just was so incredible, and it was so different than what I'd been working on, and it was so new and fresh and exciting. So, getting back to meeting Paul, we just started talking. Hey, why don't we put on some shows? We'll find some Pauls to do it. And the first place we went to, we produced in San Francisco, was a place called 330 Grove. It was a gay community center at the time, and we did a bunch of shows there, and also in Berkeley, at occasional halls. Then we stumbled on the Temple Beautiful, and it was in this great location of history. It was a big, large building, like I said, right between, on one side, the legendary Fillmore Auditorium, and on the other side, the infamous People's Temple. And it was like a year after
Oh,
the,
okay.
yeah,
I know
a
where that
year
is.
after the
Yeah,
massacre in
right.
Ghana.
Okay, I never knew where that was. All right, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And you can maybe see a little of that building in the video, but it's mainly a focus on the temple. So we found the place, and the rent was very low, and it was huge. It had a balcony, two approximately you could get 2,000 people in there. But the rent being so low, we could produce a lot of the West Coast bands. So we worked with the Dead Kennedys, X, the Mutants, DOA from Vancouver, bands like that, and all kinds of LA bands. Um, and so we started doing shows there. And again, it was unique for the bands in that they were used to playing on little foot and a half size stages at the MAB or the Mask in LA. And now they got to play on a big, it's probably about 3.5, 4 feet high stage and big stage itself, the balcony around them. So it kind of felt like they were playing big time. I mean, it was really exciting. And there was lots of room on the floor for, you know, um, slam dancing or whatever. And stage diving, couldn't do that really at the mat very easily because it was so low. And so it was, and the place was it was beautiful. It had stained glass windows that had come around the Horn from Palestine in 1905. and it just had it was unique. It was probably the largest punk rock place on the West Coast, at least for a while. I know we did some shows at the Olympic in LA later on, but it just had this unique thing, and all the bands loved playing there. So we got to work with everybody, the main band practically on the West Coast. We worked with them, and then also just saying that because the rent was low and had a lot of room, we did some big shows like co-productions with New Youth, an organization who wanted to do a benefit for themselves, and they asked the Clash to play. And
Oh,
they had played for Bill Graham the night before, and of course Bill Graham's contract said can't play anywhere else. So then, being good punks and wanted to support the cause, we put up flyers that just had their picture. We couldn't put their name on it, and it said the only band that matters. And so, of course, that sold out completely. And there's some great shots in the video of them, one from above, behind the stage, with them in their kind of famous stances above the drums. It's really cool. And then some solo shots of musicians. And then the Buzzcocks were going to be produced with a Cal, but they were on a tour with Gang of Four, their first time, both of them on the same bill. And so we co-produced with this guy from Cal, I can't remember his name. So because we ran the place and kind of knew how it worked, so we did that show, and of course another sellout. And so yeah, that's essentially how the temple ran, and we ran for 2.5 years. Incredible, nice. It got more popular, more popular. Unfortunately, then some punk posers started coming and thought it was to be punk was to like break some of that beautiful stained glass.
hmm.
Unfortunately, then we had to leave, and we started doing shows at 10th Street Hall, a place called Rat's Palace, but they just never had that unique thing like the temple. And so I mean, they were utilitarian kind of halls, they were great, but there was nothing like the temple.
So how long was the temple going on for then?
It went from 79 to 81,
Okay.
about 2.5 years. And we were not like the MAB in that, they were doing 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Unbelievable. I don't know, dirt book that like that is crazy. And we would do normally weekends, but we would usually have more bands than like the MAB. MAB usually three. So we would have four or five, probably minimal, and maybe more. And so, yeah, 2.5 years.
That's really cool. I like when you guys play that you're playing a lot of songs from bands I never even heard of before, but kind of opening up like a whole different
Oh,
element of it.
right. Yeah. Our set. Yeah. How that came about, how the band formed. Would you like to know about that? I can mention that. Is that I after about 5 years of doing the shows, I got kind of burned out. I wanted to go in another direction, and I started working in video and production, and then also as an actor, and I started producing and acting in this company called Subterranean Shakespeare, co-producer, and we did everything from Shakespeare to Mammoth. But I did that for like 20 years, and I continued. We continued to go to shows, and then in 2012 and 15, there were these reunions in San Francisco wow, look at all the old bands that we worked with were playing, or versions of them, of course. And so I started going and seeing old friends, and then meeting new friends as the new punk scene. And then I just started going to the local clubs, Knockout, and other places like that, and getting to know some bands. And then in 2019, well, I should say, John O'Keefe, a playwright, a friend of mine from San Francisco, had two plays being produced in LA, and same weekend. So I flew down with a girlfriend, and we saw them. And then the Sunday just before we were leaving, I knew that Chip Tinman's new band, Ford Maddox Ford, him formerly with Gills, and Rank and File and other bands, were playing. So I thought, oh, great. But it was such a weird thing. It was funny. It was at the Topanga Mall outside in the sun
Oh,
during the
wow.
day, and for a radio station there.
Yeah.
So we went, and we had a great talk and old memories and whatever. And I said, hey, if you guys ever want to come up and play, maybe we can put together a show. Who knows? 6 months later, he contacts me and says, we're putting together a version of the Dills for the 40th anniversary of the Dills were headquartered in San Francisco, originally from Southern California, but it was during their reign, they were in San Francisco. So they were on to do shows in LA and punk rock bowling in Vegas and San Diego and Vancouver. So he asked me, would you like to produce them up there? And I went, what? Wow. I couldn't believe 40 years later, I was going to produce a punk rock show. So I contacted Bottom of the Hill. I got No Alternative, another band that used to play the Temple all the time, played there more than anybody, actually. And then I thought, you know what? Over the years, I'd been in some alternative bands. I played drums and sang,
Mhm.
but I wasn't part of that original punk scene. I did not play at all, just produced. And I thought, you know what? I want to play this time. So I thought, why not put together a band that plays songs by bands that played the Temple who no longer play? So you were mentioning some of them, Suburban Lawns. We had in our first shows, the Plugs from LA, Tuxedo Moon, a great band from San Francisco. So we started learning those songs, and then it was really fun. And then later we did the Zeros, although now they're back playing. They're too
Yeah, I
early.
just saw they're doing a reunion thing.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm going on.
Well, I just saw that the Zeros are doing a reunion thing. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. The 40th anniversary, and then I thought, well, it's the 40th of the Temple also. So that same night at bottom of the hill, I had lots of posters and pictures from the temple all around the place, and so part of the same thing was going on, but the Dills were the main focus, and the alternative, of course. It was a great night, totally sold out, and probably the biggest crowd we ever played for before or since.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was a fabulous night.
Yeah, we got to
And
play
we
with
just, oh, it was supposed to be a one-off for our band, Temple
okay.
Band. We were called the Temple Beautiful Memorial Band for that. And then just to kind of shorten it, we're just now called Temple Beautiful. And I just, hey, let's play it. And I'm just thinking, God, I can't believe I am, well, at the time, 70, and or 69 or 70, and I'm a lead singer in a punk rock band. I mean, it's still kind of it's fun. I mean, it's amazing, and everybody seems to like us. They like the old songs. We do originals also, but the main focus. And then 2 years ago, we got a new singer, and her husband was a tech guy and working in Silicon Valley, and he also had his own like video show that he would do mostly with DJs. But he asked me, "Hey, would you like us to maybe do a show?" And so he would show images and stuff. And I said, "Okay, I'll find a bunch of images for each of our songs." And I did that. And for the Temple Beautiful, I went back and found all these old posters, photos. And when I saw what he was doing, I went, "Why don't we just make a music video?" Because the place was never really documented like the MAB and other places. So we have this 4 minute song written by Chuck Prophet, if people know who he is, a professional musician. He came to
Yeah.
our shows when he was a kid and wrote this song called Temple Beautiful. And he even had an album called Temple Beautiful in 2012. So that's essentially, all this kind of came together as far as the video.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it's a great song and the video is really fun because I had no idea how beautiful the club was. And it really captures it. And what I like about the video is it just gives you a teaser of what it might have been to be like there. And then to see some of those bands on stage, like I think, what do you say? Crime played there too, didn't they?
Yep, yep.
Crime, The Clash. We actually got to share a stage with No Alternative a couple of years ago, and what a fantastic band. I mean, really,
Yeah.
really
Yeah, I
solid.
love you, or Johnny, who used to be called Genocide. Yeah, they were yeah, again. They played the temple more than anybody. Paul actually managed them, so they got a lot of opening gigs at the temple, among other places we play shows. Yeah, they're great. And they're still playing. Matter of fact, we got a show coming up. I'm again producing kind of all day shows, which we've been a part of around the Bay Area. So we're doing a show with them and another band from the era version called the Sleepers. This is
Mhm.
Sleepers AD, After Death. I'll have to say. So we're doing a show in August, August 16th.
Yeah, I'm sorry we couldn't make that one. So that sounds like it'd be fun.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be a fun day with a bunch of other bands.
So yeah, so now I like how you've kind of evolved from doing that, doing the production, take a little Shakespeare break,
Yeah.
which I guess people do from time to time, and then coming back. But I like how the band started, and I love the concept, and I appreciate that you're also taking what you did then, and you're doing these shows around the area because the all day shows have been really fun. I'm really liking that.
Thank you. Yes, they have been. So many great bands to play around here, and it's always thrilling to do the show. Fantastic.
And well, it seems to help really create a great sense of community. Tell me a little bit about the folks in your band because you've got a really solid band that you're working with too.
Oh, well, we've had a lot. Actually, the first band, we had some of the local regulars that were in other bands, and they decided they wanted to go back to their, they're busy. Like Buzzmaster from Fuzz Attack was in the group at the time. Sophie B from Victims. And then since then, the band we've got now, we have, let's see. Well, the lead guitar player has been all through this. Is an old friend of mine. He's even older than me, and I've known him for he's played guitar for like 65 years, and he's just an amazing guitar player. And Kevin Moore and Andy Broadbent on drums, terrific drummer. Been working with him for a couple of years. And then Manny Afonso on keyboards recently joined the band.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah. And then on bass, Mike McKevitt, who plays with a million other bands. He's always busy. And then recently, singer Howie. And then she actually got us some studio time at Indian Valley College. They had a really great recording studio there. And so we recorded two songs, and one being The Temple Beautiful, which we then attached to this video. And then a song that's coming out next month called Socio Psychopath, original song, a duet between her and myself. It's kind of fun, funny, wacky. I don't know if you've seen us do it, but yeah, so those are the members currently.
Well, that's great. So what's inspiring some of the new music that you're working on?
I'm sorry again.
What's inspiring some of the new music that you're working on?
Oh, well, tell you the truth, the new songs, like Socio Psychopath came from oh God, producing a play, and a member of the cast was just whacked, and just weird, and I started kind of thinking, what is wrong with this person? And I started doing some research and started finding out about sociopaths and psychopaths and their personalities and how they have these traits of being, just very affable and friendly when you first meet them, and then suddenly everything goes crazy. And she really, the person disrupted the production. Money was stolen from the box office. It looked like that person. Anyways, just to make a long story short, after doing this research, I thought I'm going to write a song about psychopaths, and again, it's humorous, hopefully, and with the duet, it's fun to do. And then the other material I've done for years. We have a song called "No Class War," which was written like 30 years ago by a friend of mine, and we did them in these alternative bands I was in, and we're doing it now. Unfortunately, because of the political times, it's still up to date.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So most of I like doing kind of political things. So our songs are the originals, kind of aim for that consciousness.
Nice. I really appreciate the way that, like I've mentioned before, you do a storytelling as you go along, but there's also an element of theater to what you produce also on stage.
Yes, that was definitely a big influence when I was in the other bands and then just being an actor. Oh, and also one song we do, which is not a total original, is called "Oh Death, Rock Me to Sleep." And it
Yeah.
was actually written by Anne Boleyn, who was famously married to Henry VIII and was one of his eight wives. He went, after he got tired of her. And she wrote this poem back then, and I came across it. And I produced an album about 15 years ago called Shakespeare's Greatest Hits. And the idea was to find Bay Area musicians and actors to put together old, written by Shakespeare or in that era, and with modern types of music. And so when I saw the title, I decided this could be a great death metal or, a punk rock song. And it's got the power chords and everything, and the words, just describe how she was feeling the night before she was going to be executed. It was actually a big hit back in Shakespeare's day as a folk kind of, song of the era. So that's another kind of take on what we do. And again, yes, theatrical is a good way to describe what our shows are.
Yeah, and that's a fun song. And I don't know if I was reading something a while ago, and I think there was something to the effect that Henry VIII might have been actually singing like a singer when he was young, which is kind of funny.
Really? Well,
So
then,
yeah,
well,
so but I
maybe,
guess when you're king, you can be whatever you want, right? So it's
yeah,
you can just call
right.
yourself singer. Like I'm a singer in a band. All right, cool.
Yeah, when they're younger, they're a little more idealistic, and then they're probably a prince,
Yeah.
then king, and then,
So what's inspiring you today musically? Anything that's really grabbing you?
well, mostly the bands we've worked with. I mean, you guys are fun, and you put out a lot of music, and so I like Erik Core, and then just on a bull, but it's great surprise. Really
Thank you.
enjoy your speaking of theatrical, and oh my God, well, again, some of the old bands are coming back. Oh, the Sleepers AD really put on. Have you seen them? They put
Oh
on.
yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah, I love their old songs. Um, God, I wish I had a list in front of me because we've got shows coming up. God, there's so many. Everybody's so unique. Dead Sailor Girls with Greg from the
Oh,
Avengers.
that yeah, they're fant we played with them a couple times.
Yes, that's where I met
That's
you.
where we played with you the first time. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yes,
That's Greg
and
from the Avengers on guitar there, and
yeah, been trying to do a gig with the Avengers. Hasn't worked out, but it'd be fun. I love Penelope and Company. Oh God, some of the other bands. I'm sorry, blanking. Was sort of
don't feel bad. You know, it's even as I asked you the question, I realized I see so much live music that I can't even remember half of what I've seen
right.
anymore because I just go out all the time to watch bands play. So and yeah, it's I'm always going to see my friends, and then it's just more like I don't even think about the band as much as those are my friends playing and just hanging out. And
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, and also I've gotten back. Speaking of reunions, put together shows at Bottom of the Hill with the Mutants and brought the Alley Cats up from L.A. They're from back in the day, and hoping to do another show with them. They got a new album they recorded about a year ago, and it just hasn't come out, and that's fantastic. I love the Alley Cats. You ever see them?
never seen them before. No.
Yeah, and Randy, and then who else have we? Yeah, I guess those are the main old bands. It's really fun to actually get to play with some of the bands I would watch and be, produced, and then now I'm actually playing on the same bill. It's like, wow. Nobody told me that 10 or 20, anybody told me 20 years ago, like, what? No way. It's really exciting. They're all still great, the Mutants, I love. They still put on a great show. Um, the Yeah, just trying to think. I'm sorry, drawing a blank.
Oh, don't worry about it. Is there anything like that? Any special projects that you've been trying to work on musically or creatively that?
Well, actually, now that you mention it, there's this. I'm working on this very mini opera that I worked on about 5 years ago for this series of shows called the Murder Ballad Show. You guys ever play that, or do you know about it in
Heard
Berkeley?
of it? Yeah.
Around Halloween every year, Paul Pot produces it, and I've done it in different kinds of bands. And so about 5 years ago, I started working on this song. Well, again, kind of an opera. It's in sections, different short songs connected about America's kind of first well-known serial killer. Maybe you never heard of him, but H. Holmes, Dr. H. Holmes, in the late 1800s. And it's a creepy thing. And he had this hotel he built during the Chicago World's Fair of 1893. And it had grisly rooms where he murdered people. And he had it all set up where people were coming to the fair from out of town. from little towns, and they never would go back. People just say, "Oh yeah, last we heard they went to Chicago," and anyways, the story just tells about all the grisliness, and it's a fun thing. And so right now, I am working on it with our keyboard player Manny to kind of put together arrangement. Because when I did it, the Murder Ballad show, I wanted a bigger group, and I had some singers that didn't work out, and so I did it solo. But it's by all means not the way I want to do it. And so having a singer in the band, and then maybe even adding some other people. I think it'll be really something different than at least any of the bands I see playing around. It's like an 8-minute piece, and so I would say that's probably the biggest new project I'm working on. I think it's fun.
Well, that sounds really fun, and I'm always impressed because half the time I show up at something and Manny's there either working people, helping people with sound, or in a band or doing something. So it's
Oh, he is a
phenomenal.
godsend, and
Yeah,
everything you just said. Yeah, he knows how to work PAs. He loves doing it. So he is a sound man, and then I discovered him playing bass and keyboards with the Pups. And when I saw and we needed a new keyboard player, and so I asked him, and it was on one of my shows, and so he saw us and liked us, I guess, and wanted to join. And so yeah, he's great, and he produces shows himself, so we get a few more gigs. And we just did one at his barbecue, and he does this Hank's barbecue 4 times a year in the summer in his backyard. Oh man, that was fabulous.
and that's a lot of fun.
Oh, Dollar Store is a great band.
They're fantastic. Yeah,
Love playing them. They just play. We play. I mean, I produced them, but they also just played recently. So I'm thinking of some of the other bands that played that day. Um, yeah, yeah, Dollar Store put on a great show. Lead a saxophone, great personality on stage, great singer.
yeah. No, they're really saw them the other day, and they're just fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're definitely different and just high energy. And I don't know that. Yeah, they are different. Really good. A lot. You can move bands.
So for those of us who've never experienced the Temple Beautiful beyond your show, but get to watch the video and get a little bit of a feel for it, is there something special that you could leave people with just to give them a sense of like what might have happened on a night or what the experience might have been like there? Because it's
Wow.
because when I see the video, I'm drawn into it, but it's like tasting something delicious that will never actually
Sure.
pass my lips.
Well, it's just again most of the excitement. I mean, I'm wearing actually a poster for 2 of the shows, and I just want to mention some of the eclectic lineups. Here we got This is on a Friday. Tuxedo Moon. You ever heard of Black Randy and the Metro Squad? We actually do
Yeah.
Sanford, one of their songs. They're from LA. Remember Wall of Voodoo? They actually
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
huge, because this was before they were big. And the infamous Mentors. They
Oh,
opened the
yeah.
show. They came up with Black Randy. And then the next night, we had the Good Old Mutants as a headliner, Black Randy again, and the Go-Go's. I don't know how many people knew they were a punk rock band at one time before they, with a
Oh,
colorful,
yeah.
pop band that they became well known. And then again, Wall of Voodoo. So that's kind of an example. I, you know, that it just it's 45 years ago, and as far as the specifics, a lot of the things got to run together. But I
Yeah.
remember just kind of interesting things. I remember just off the wall thought, Bruce Luce from Flipper.
Hmm.
In fact, Flipper kind of got started with Temple. I mean, they probably played other small gigs, but they would come to our shows before they were Flipper. And I remember Bruce one night coming in before the show into the lobby. In the lobby, it was all marble. The place was beautiful in that way, but very echo. And he came in with this boom box, and he had programmed before programming. He had a cassette where he repeated some very annoying about 2 bars of music. It kept repeating, and he just comes in, walks in, puts it down, and just everybody's going, "What the hell?" And it was just such a that was kind of a typical night because of it was just so open to people doing their art. We had all kinds of other art expression besides music that people would come and present. And as far as art and things like that, um, God, as far as specifics, I mean, it's just seeing the bands, hanging out in the dress, with them, and oh God, wish I was more prepared to as a specific, but we just did so many shows.
Oh yeah.
It really is, yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you found a way to share some of that history with people.
And the video, oh, can I just say something about that? Well,
Yeah.
maybe I already did, but the video does show the Chronicle that I mentioned came for us. An event we put on called the Western Front, where we worked with the MAB and with Dirk and the Death Club, and to kind of get punk rock out to the mainstream. And the Chronicle showed up, and Joel Selvin wrote an article, but they also had a photographer, and she got some incredible shots. And not only like that night was Dead Kennedys, Alley Cats, and the Bags. Not only shots of them, but of the temple and the audience. So I got those in the video to kind of just give you an idea. It wasn't just a typical club. It was like you came in the lobby, going upstairs to go into the big room. They had the bathrooms downstairs with a big lobby, and people hung out. So it was definitely different than the map in that regard. And so it was a great hangout. And yeah, it was a terrific place. I think, yeah, specific shows. Remember when the light standard fell into the audience? That was exciting. Yeah, very punk rock. Um, yeah. Well, it's just seeing these bands that we had heard about, like the Clash live in this environment. And what people said, the show over in Berkeley was nothing compared to the excitement Temple the next night. I didn't see the night before. We were setting things up. And the Buzzcocks, of course, and Gang of Four. Like, oh man, we were incredible. Trying to think of any specifics. Yeah. Um,
No, it sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm glad
oh,
that you're kind of keeping the spirit of it alive through the Temple Beautiful band. It's a great concept. And I like that you're also, b building that, building on that community and connecting, younger bands to some more seasoned bands and kind of like closing that gap in some places, which is really
yeah, no, I love working with all these new bands. It's always exciting to see somebody new that's trying something different. And there's not like a sameness to the bands. They all have their own unique styles. And I always get not anything against hardcore because we Black Flag played once at the Temple and then we left because it was like when the hardcore was just starting, and we worked with them a lot, Circle Jerks and like that. But I must say, when I look back on time, you go to hardcore shows and all the bands kind of sounded the same,
right.
whereas the early punk days, you had that variety, from
Yeah.
Tuxedo Moon to the Avengers to a Pink Section, you know,
It's one of the things I
variety.
always loved about the early punk rock is every time I picked up an album, I knew that I was going to hear something I hadn't heard before.
Yes,
And
yeah,
that's I think one of the things that made it so special.
it was really an exciting time. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole atmosphere of the era was, what it kind of reminded me because I was old. I used to go next door to the Fillmore when I was like 16 to see the Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and stuff, and there was that excitement of the psychedelic age or whatever you want to call it. And then the punk thing had that same feeling, but completely different music, obviously, but that spirit,
Yeah.
which was very exciting. And we needed it because the books and bands that were playing from 72 to 76 around here were, kind of playing the old, same old, same old. And so it really was a big change when the Avengers and Crime. Crime was probably one of the earliest bands in San Francisco that well known. They were definitely different than the music that we were listening to before then.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing all this history with us today. If people want to reach out and contact your band, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, I'm Facebook and on Instagram.
So just look up Temple Beautiful Band
Yeah,
and
well, actually, Temple Beautiful, but my name is Jeffrey Geoffrey M Pond. That's probably the best way on Facebook to
okay.
connect. And yeah, and please check out the video. You get it posted. I think it's a very fun 4 minutes.
Yeah, and it's a great it's just a great slice into that time period and that history. Because there's not enough documentation of that experience. And so
Yes, and I always thought about it, but I never really thought about actually putting it all together. So yeah, it kind of fell in our laps and getting it produced. So I'm really thankful to all the help we got and all the research I've done and all the bands. Like the end of the song, I say, "God bless the temple and all the bands that played."
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's awesome. And thanks again for joining
sure.
us today.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to doing some more gigs together soon.
Yes, see you in August.
All right. Thank you.
Cool. Good night.